Hey everybody, welcome to the Way Wednesdays virtual Midrash. It's great to be with you. And hey, I'm your host, Doug Hamp. And guess who I have with me? I've got my wonderful, amazing co-host, Pastor Gary, here on mute, buddy. But he's over there, and it's great to see you, man.
It's good to see you. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome. Boy, we are really having some great times in the Word. Today, we're going through Numbers 13 through 15, and this is one of my favorite because it deals with Nephilim. But it's not only about Nephilim. It's not only about Nephilim. There's a really bigger story here. That's just part of this little thing, right? Well, it's interesting. If you leave the story of the Nephilim out of the Bible, there are a lot of parts that are not going to make sense because there's actions that were taken based on that reality that you have to account for that. And I think that is one reason that people have so many Bible difficulties is because they don't take, scripture at face value, and what it says is what it says. So
I'll give you that. Yeah. I knew the Nephilim were good for something.
Well, good. Hey, we want to let people know we've gotten past, of course, the big holidays, the spring holidays. Now we're looking forward to the fall feast, and we want to remind everybody that we have Sukkot with the Way. We hope you can make it. We're going to have so much fun. We're going to have Bible studies, worship, family and kid activities, sports, biking, hiking, fishing, playground, baseball, frisbee golf, and more. I should update my graphic, but I haven't done that. But it's September 20th through the 29th. It's going to be in Elizabeth. We're starting at Casey's RV Hideaway. So I just want to make this really clear. And Gary, you can support me in this, that we want to extend the invitation to you, right? We want to extend it to people that are not necessarily in Colorado. If you've been wondering, what should I do for Sukkot this year? Come hang out with us. It's going to be a really good time. We're crunching the numbers. We're really trying to make it as affordable as possible. Gary, what's kind of the ballpark? Is there kind of a ballpark that maybe people should expect for a family of four? Is there something you have?
Sure. So first of all, there's lots of variables because some people will want to stay for the entire duration of the feast. And we've got RV camping. We also have tent camping that's available. And then we also have people that come down for the day or the weekend, or maybe they want to camp for the weekend. So RVs, because there's limited space, it's a fixed price for the entire week, and at $360. And then we have on top of that the daily registration fee. Same with tent camping. We've been able to reduce the price of that. It's $20 a day for a tent, which is 2 adults and a bunch of kids. So if you want to bring 2 tents, think of it as 2 tents. That's only $20 a day for tent camping. And this is a beautiful RV park. It's not your traditional RV park. It has a few RV spaces, a bunch of tent spaces, and then a bunch of trees and camp and hiking trails and just open space around there. Beautiful meadow for tents to set up in. We've got a community room where community events will be going on. We've got a special structure set aside for the Sukkot, where we'll be hosting teachings daily and worship, and then we've just got a lot of fun, meals and movie nights and things like that. So anyway, there's a lot of variables that contribute to the price. If you were 2 adults, a couple kids, camping out for the entire week, you should probably budget around $500 or $600. Something like that. And then you may have to purchase food and prepare your own food and stuff like that. And I should let you know, though, we're away from things, but we're not in the sticks. So there's a Walmart within 5 miles. There's a Safeway within 3 miles. There's a number of restaurants and things like that you can go to. Domino's delivers. So there's lots of options for you. So when you say who's invited, anybody within earshot. And today, within the realm of the internet, that means pretty much anybody worldwide, and
Yeah.
maybe even people in the other dimension. Who knows? There's
Maybe some angels
they're
will
welcome.
come. Angels,
Yes.
if you want to come, you're welcome.
Yes.
So, yeah, we just want to really, let you know that you don't have to be like a regular attender of the way. If you're tuning in, you've heard about this, somebody told you, right? And if you are somebody that watches all the time, you want to tell your friends, your family, whoever, tell them, invite them. They're very welcome to come. This is to be a time of fellowship, a time of study. It's I think God made the feast so that we can get to know each other. And, sometimes it's just not enough during the week, during the year, once a week on Shabbat, etc. I mean, it's a good start, but we want to invite you guys to come. So definitely.
And that's so true. That 1 hour of fellowship or 2 hours of fellowship every Shabbat is so inadequate. To be able to actually to spend days together, to have community meals together, to be able to wake up and get tired and spend the day and do all that kind of stuff. It really develops relationship, and that's one of the beautiful parts about Sukkot. So we're excited.
Yeah. Amen. Well, hey, let's get into the word today. So this is Numbers 13. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel from each tribe of their fathers. You shall send a man, every one a leader among them. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of them men who were heads of the children of Israel. Now, these are the names from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua, the son of Zakur; from the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat, the son of Hori; from the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh; from the tribe of Issachar, Igad, the son of Joseph; from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Nun; from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti, the son of Raphu; from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, the son of Sodi; from the tribe of Joseph, that is, from the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi, the son of Susi; from the tribe of Dan, Amiel, the son of Gemali; from the tribe of Asher, Setur, the son of Mikael; from the tribe of Naphtali, Nahbi, the son of Vofsi, from the tribe of Gad, Geuel, the son of Machi. These are the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua. Then Moses sent them out to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up this way into the south and go up to the mountains and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests there or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehov, near the entrance of Hamat. And they went up through the south and came to Hebron, Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai. The descendants of Anak were there. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. Then they came to the valley of Eshcol, and there cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. They carried it between two of them on a pole. They also brought some of the pomegranates and figs. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell on the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell on the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land, which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the giants. The descendants of Anak came from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. All right. So, cool text. Sad text, though. I mean, this is such a sad day, right? I mean, remember a couple chapters ago, God's like, okay, everyone, you need to get into formation. Judah, you're going to lead the way, then Zebulun, etc. And we're going to march, right? And they're close. Like they're a couple days from the land. Then they get literally to the door, right? They're knocking on the door and they're like, oh, we're not going to go. And it's so sad, like, and what do I find amazing about the Bible? Sometimes we think, well, this is the way that it had to be, but no, it's not. This is the way it turned out. It did not have to be this way. Mm-hmm. And had they chosen A instead of B, then God would have worked with them. He would have done this thing a little bit differently. Still we would have had Jesus and all that, but still it would have had a different story, and it would have been very interesting. And I think that's so important for us to understand, is that we are part of this story. We are writing this story, and the way that we act, the way that we trust the Lord or don't trust the Lord impacts that story. It's kind of like God says, look, I'm going to go from A to B. Okay. And I'm going to get there either way, but you have options 1, 2, and 3. I recommend option 1, by the way, wink, wink, but options 2 and 3, you can choose those. You'll still get to where I want you to go, but it's going to be painful along the way. If you choose my path, it's pretty clear sailing. If you choose your paths, I'll still get you to my destination, but it'll be the hard way. And this is what we see with the children of Israel. This is what we see in our own lives.
I think you're so right, Doug, in the sense that oftentimes we choose a path that is of least resistance. And the slightest bit of news that is to the contrary of what we find in our current comfort zone just scares us, puts us in a state of fear, and causes us to make bad decisions. And the children of Israel at this point in time, they were living in the wilderness, but they had all their food provided for, right? They had shelter. We see that even after wandering 40 years in the wilderness, their clothes didn't wear out, their feet didn't grow, they still had shoes that fit. The Lord provided everything that they had, and they saw to their needs. And I think sometimes fear of the unknown paralyzes us in our walk, or we bring on a sense of that we don't really trust the Lord, that we just think that he's leaving us on our own. But really what he wants us to do is to take that next step in faith and trust him that he will go before us and do battle. Everything looked great in the land. Yes, there were Nephilim. Yes, there were fortified cities. But there was fruit abundant. The land was luscious. It was flowing with milk and honey. But they were comfortable, in a sense, in the situation that they were in the wilderness. And I find that so true today, that people kind of get stuck in their comfort zone and they don't want to step out. They've given their life to the Lord. They've given their, they said the prayer. They've have their salvation in Yeshua. But now it's like, what do I do with that? Do I go out and I actually tell people I'm a Christian? Do I dare evangelize? Do I dare serve in the church? Do I stand up as an usher? Do I take people to their seats? Do I enter into the hospitality? Do I do something? It's like we get so comfortable. It's like, okay, I took this step, but everything else is like, I don't have time for it, or it's too much, or what if I fail, or what if nobody likes me, and stuff like that. And we get stuck, and because we don't trust that God will deliver. that God will take us to the next step, that God will make us disciples. We don't want to admit that we don't know something, that we might need to be mentored or discipled, that we might need to grow in our faith, where somehow we think that we magically know it all, and we're supposed to be Bible scholars or whatever, or God. The pastor might find out, oh, I've got this secret little thing that I do on the side, or I'm not as successful in business as I think, or my marriage is in shambles, or my kids are going haywire, or whatever. All these things keep us in the wilderness. These are our Anakim, right?
Yeah.
The weird stuff that gets in our heads that keeps us from moving forward. That was going on. And I tell you, these guys, as you read in the very beginning, these guys were pillars of the faith. These were men of renown. These were the cream of the crop, right?
Right. These are the brave guys, right?
Right.
And that's why I think, not to harp on the Nephilim thing, but that they were real. Like, that's what I think is important, is that they were real. They were not making this up.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I've heard it say, well, they were just exaggerating. Like, no, there really was a big problem, literally a big problem in the land. And that's what makes it all the more relatable, is that, all of us have really big problems in our lives. But, remember, like, when we were at that stage when we had little kids, and I don't know if you're at that stage, right? Remember when you have little kids and, there's some big problem in their life, and we look at it as an adult, we're like, that's nothing, like, you have no idea. You just have to ask me and I'll solve that for you like that fast, But to their little minds, it's huge. This is a big, big problem, And that's the same thing. And God had already said he was going before them, that he was going to do battle, right? Remember, Kuma Adonai, right? Rise up, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. That is what they were prepping for. They were getting ready for this day, and now it's come, and they kind of get to that place, and they're like, I don't know. This reminds me of when I went skydiving. This is before we had kids. My wife thought, well, if he dies now, at least we don't have kids. I lived, but I'll tell you, I was so jazzed. I'm like, this is going to rock. I was so excited. And I had to sign like form after form. If I die, I'm not going to sue, And then I had to, do a video. I'm doing this of my own free will. Yes, I know there's danger and I could die, etc. Right? So we're walking out. I got my jumpsuit on. Like, we're going out to the plane. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm so ready for this, So we get up in the plane. I get strapped onto my instructor, and then they open the door, right? And we're not the first people to go. And it suddenly hit me. And I'm like, wait a second. This is a really nice plane. Why would I jump out of this plane? It was this really weird thing because I was so excited about it. But when they opened the door, it was like my mortality started saying, Doug, what are you doing? You don't jump out of planes, And it was so bizarre. And so then it was our turn. We got up to the door and I started talking to the guy. I'm like, maybe. And then he just pushed us out. And I was like, And I'm
they only have so much fuel. They had to get you out of there pretty sometimes.
I'm so glad he pushed me out because my brain was saying, no, are you crazy? But my heart really wanted to do it, right? But suddenly there was this conflict. I'm like, this is crazy. I can't jump out of a plane. And that's part of it, is that, we can't jump out of planes unless you have a parachute and an instructor. And then you can jump out of a plane, and it's really safe and it's fun. It's an incredible experience. But we get to that place where we get to that door and you're like, I can't do this, and that was part of it, is that the giants were real, right? Just like the ground below me in that plane was a long way down. It really was, but it was doable. That's the thing. It was doable. And with God, all things are doable. All things are possible when we're walking in his strength, not in my strength. That's how Peter could walk on water. It was not in Peter's strength. It was in God's strength, but it was Peter's faith that allowed him to operate in God's strength.
Yeah.
And we see this message throughout the Bible. It's like, look, your part is to have faith. God's part is to have strength. He'll provide the muscle. You just have to provide the belief.
Yeah.
And he'll work with you, and he'll go before you, and he'll destroy the enemies. He will rout them. Don't worry about it, because he's got it covered. But then you start thinking, well, I've got to do this. I'm the one who has to make it all happen. And that is where we get into big trouble, right?
Yeah.
Is when we start thinking, I'm the reason for all this success. We see this with King Uzziah. He was a really successful king. 56 years he reigned.
Yeah.
And, it says the Lord blessed him and destroyed his enemies and made him rich and all this stuff. And then toward the end of his life, he somehow decides that he has to go into the temple and he has to perform the sacrifice because it's all about him, right? And that's, even in the times of fear is a type of pride. It's kind of ironic, but fear is a kind of pride because fear says, I can't do it. But when we're in the Lord, we don't need to listen to that fear because you're like, I agree with you. I can't do it, but he can. He can. And that's where God wants us to get to so that we will trust him and stop saying that I can't do it. Because God's like, I know and I agree. You can't, but I can. And I will work in you and through you and with you. And together we're going to do this amazing thing. But then when you do the amazing thing, then don't pull a Gideon and say, well, look what I did. Right.
Right.
But it's like, hey, dude, did you just forget you were all scared over there? And like, I'm the least of the children of Benjamin. I can't do a thing. And God's like, I'm going to use you, almighty man. And then after the fact, he's like, look what I did, And same thing with King Saul, right? God raises him up. Then he builds a monument to himself after God had given him all those victories. And so it's between these two extremes, these bookends, that the enemy will get us. He'll either get us to fear so that we don't trust God at all, and we have paralysis of analysis, there we go. And we don't move a muscle. Or we start saying, God worked through me. And then I start to forget about God. And they say, look what I did. Look what I did in my strength. And that's not a good position either. So we got to stay right in the middle between these two and say, okay, I can't do it by my strength. That's not enough. But God in his strength is able. And I'm going to keep my head low and be humble and just operate in his strength and watch him do amazing things. I will get to enjoy part of the fruit of that, yes, but not for my glory, but for his glory.
Yeah, but the reality is that's just a really fine line between faith and fear, or faith and pride, or whatever. I mean, Peter experienced, right? He gets out of the boat, he has faith, and then you get your mind, shift your mind for just a second, and all of a sudden you're sinking. You have to. It's just a really tough place to be consistent. And what's so important is that it requires a constant training, a constant reliance on the Lord. When we were driving home yesterday, we were up in attending resting places on Memorial Day, and we were listening on the way home. My wife and I were listening to stories, Memorial Day stories from D-Day invasion. And they were talking about what formidable enemies the Nazis were. And the only way that they were able to defeat them, to get through the beachheads and to get through the hedgerows and to get across the fields, to ultimately get a foot into Europe, was through just intense training and discipline under live fire conditions, where their boot camp was, and things like this. And they were constantly trained and well prepared and ready to go and well planned and well executed. Yes, even still, a lot of people lost their lives. A lot of people froze in their tracks. But overall, the army persevered and was able to make headway. And it's true in our faith walk. Ultimately, we need to get out of the wilderness, and we need to take the step into the promised land. And we need to take on the strong towers. We need to take on the Nephilim. We need to be able to take on the fortified city. And it is us physically doing it in the power of God. But that's that fine line. It's like we need to do it, but God does it. He goes before us and makes it happen. And that relationship that make that happen. It's like faith without works is dead, right? In this case, faith without works gets you dead. It's so important that we be able to step up and be able to actually do something. And well, our comfort zone oftentimes is in the wilderness and gets us trapped there. Tradition says that the bad report came on the 9th of Av, right? Which turns out to be an infamous day in the history of Israel over and over and over again, where they were at a crossroads of where their belief met their actions, and over again, their actions failed. Wow. And that's true. It holds true today. So we have to constantly be in training. What does that mean? Be in the Word, be in fellowship, be in worship, pray without ceasing. All of these things, just have a way of life that is immersed in Scripture, is immersed in the people of God, is immersed in making progress of building yourself up and building others up, so that we can be prepared when the call comes, when it's okay, it's time to take the beachhead. It's like, okay, I'm going. Yeah. I'm trusting it's going to happen. And great things will happen.
Amen. We've been talking about discipleship a lot at the Way congregation, and discipleship, right? Disciple is the same word as discipline, right? We often think of discipline as when somebody does something wrong and we're going to go discipline that person, which, but the idea of that word, to discipline somebody, in other words, to punish them, it has a corrective sense about it, right? It's not just that I'm just going to punish them because whatever, but I want to disciple this person. This action they did was not good. And so I need to train them in a different way. And that's ultimately what we're talking about when we talk about discipline. And, in the military, it might feel like somebody's punishing you, but, well, they kind of are. But it's called boot camp, right? And that is not to be mean to you, but it's to train you. And that is the only way. And I think somehow the American church at large has kind of bought into and been resting in this idea that, well, as a follower of Jesus, when I give my life to him, now everything's just going to be rosy and it's going to be great. And, I might have a flat tire here and there, and I might have a bill that I can't pay once in a while, but overall it's going to be great. And look, I'm the first guy to admit I like that. I'm not trying to be a martyr, but I think we need to change our mindset to say, I'm a disciple of Jesus. I'm a disciple of Yeshua, and it may require some very arduous boot camp, where I have to get out of my comfort zone, as you were talking about, Gary. And really, the children of Israel going into the land, that's the same thing as discipleship. It's the same basic idea as when Jesus sent the 70 out to go and do battle with the with the demons and whatnot, and cast them out, right? And he sent them out in his authority. It wasn't just that the children of Israel were just showing up, or like, hey, we think this might be a nice place to live. No, they were there on the authority of God. God was going before them. And when God goes before you, then you can walk with your head high and your chest out and know that, hey, God has called me to do this. And I'm not going to fear. Are those giants big? Yes, they are. Are they scary? Yeah, if I'm honest, they're scary. They really are, because they're big. But my God is bigger. And if he's authorized me to do it, then I do not need to fear the giants. And again, this is why if we say that, oh, they weren't really giants there, then we lessen the whole story. This very whole lesson is now weaker. But when there's really big giants there, then it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I think the analogy with the boot camp or any training, military training, is very apropos in the sense that when you train for the most adverse condition. In the most adverse conditions. You don't go on a nice sunny day and you're going for a hike. No, you go when the weather is lousy, when you're going to, you're dealing with mud or cold or whatever, and you're coming under attack, or perhaps a fire broke out and now you have to put out the fire. As in the Navy, we would do drills with floods. A flood occurred, something broke, and if you don't fix it, the ship sinks, or in my case, submarine. And so you would never train for the easy stuff, because the easy stuff is the easy stuff. You train for the worst conditions that could come against you and see how you would mitigate that, how you would innovate, how you'd get around that. And the same comes for your spiritual walk. I mean, because when you step out and you say, I'm going to enter into the promised land, I'm going to take on the foes with God going before me, the attacks that come against you, it's like financial failure. My marriage is falling apart. My kids are rebelling against me. All of these are like major, like the worst case scenario things can happen. That's what we're training for. It's like, how are you going to respond? How is your family going to respond? How is the community surrounding you going to respond when these things happen? It's like, they will happen. They do happen. It's like not a bed of roses. It's life. And again, the believer's life, there's non-believers that deal with the same issues. It's how are we equipped to respond to that, right? So that's, and so when we experience these adverse conditions, we go to the words, we go to the instructions, we go to the manual, we find out, Lord, we cry out. We try to cry out to the commander in chief, Lord, help me through this. Give me some insight. Show me the way. Make the way for me. And I tell you, he's faithful to do that. No commander in chief, no loving father wants to see his children fail, wants to see needless suffering. It's not needless. It is building. It's like Doug Stoffen told me, it's building character.
Well, and I was going to add one more thing, is that part of this is a calling of the of who are true disciples. That part of it is, okay, we're going to put you through this training, and some people are not going to make it. Some people are going to drop out, and that's because they really don't want to be disciples. And there's no way to sugarcoat that, right? There just is no way to sugarcoat that. If you want to be a disciple of Yeshua, then you've got to sign up for the boot camp. There's no shortcut. And if you do, then you're going through the back door, and that's where the thief and the robbers come in. You have to go through the front door. And if you're going to be under the shepherd's care and his blessings and his guidance, then you have to be willing to do what the shepherd says. And so much of what we go through in life is about training, building character, right? And so this is a lot of what it's about is, are you going to stick with him or not? Right. And Jesus seemed to do this on purpose, right? He says, if you're going to have a part of me, you got to eat my flesh and drink my blood. People are like, oh, that's too much for me. I'm out of here. You had the people that wanted to be Jesus' disciples as long as he was giving them bread. Yeah. They wanted to be his disciples as long as he was healing people. But suddenly when he had some difficult sayings and there was some persecution coming against them, and he wasn't going in the direction that they thought he should go. Lord, far be it from you to go to Jerusalem and die. Get behind me, Satan, right? Then a lot of people abandon him because he just wasn't really meeting their expectations. And I think so many people today are enamored with knowledge, Gnosticism. They want, just kind of the secret knowledge that nobody else has. They get bored with Jesus. I'm not really into Jesus that much. Or they just throw Jesus out and he's just he's nothing more than a prophet or good teacher or something like that. And they're not that into Jesus anymore. And okay, that's part of the process, is he's going to weed out people. He would love everybody to really be a committed disciple, but that's not reality. And he's not going to make you. He can't make you be a committed disciple. You have to decide that. And situations in life are those things that help us decide, am I really a disciple of Yeshua? Or am I just kind of saying that? And this is what we see. And as we get into the next chapter, we're going to see that a lot of people were just they were in it for the ride. They're like, I kind of like it out here. It's a little better than Egypt, minus we don't have any onions and leeks, but it's not bad out here. But when it really came down to it, are you going to trust me? The answer was no, we're not. And so God made that generation perish in the wilderness. Again, there's no candy coating for this thing. This is the harsh reality. And Jesus said, got to count the cost. If you're going to follow me, count the cost. It's going to require death to you, death to yourself. And that's a high cost. We have to think about it.
Absolutely. And that's the tragedy of this entire story, is that this generation essentially will die in the wilderness. You choose to live in the wilderness. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll live in the wilderness. You'll die in the wilderness too.
Yep. Amen. All right. Numbers 14. So all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will these people reject me? And how long will they not believe me? With all the signs which I have performed among them, I will strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. And Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear it, for by your might you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, Lord, are among these people, that you, Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands above them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and in a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill these people as one man, then the nations which have heard of your fame will speak, saying, because the Lord was not able to bring to this people to the land which he swore to give them. Therefore, he killed them in the wilderness. And now I pray, let the power of my Lord be great, just as you have spoken, saying, the Lord is long-suffering and abundant in mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression. But he by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Pardon the iniquity of this people, I pray, according to the greatness of your mercy, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt, even until now. Then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word. But truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. because all these men have seen my glory and the signs which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have put me to the test now these 10 times, and have not heeded my voice. They certainly shall not see the land of which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who rejected me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him and has followed me fully, I will bring him into the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites dwell in the valley. Tomorrow turn and move out into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? I have heard the complaints which the children of Israel make against me. Say to them, as I live, says the Lord, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness, all of you who were numbered according to your entire number from 20 years old and above, except for Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. You shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But your little ones, whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity, until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness, according to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection. I, the Lord, have spoken this. I will surely do so to all this congregation, this evil congregation, who are gathered together against me in this wilderness. They shall be consumed, and there they shall die. Now the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation complain against him by bringing a bad report of the land, those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before the Lord. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive, of the men who went to spy out the land. Then Moses told these words to all the children of Israel, and the people mourned greatly. And they rose early in the morning and went up to the top of the mountain, saying, here we are, and we will go up to the place which the Lord has promised, for we have sinned. And Moses said, now why do you transgress the command of the Lord? For this will not succeed. Do not go up, lest you be defeated by your enemies, for the Lord is not among you. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword, because you have turned away from the Lord, and the Lord will not be with you. But they presumed to go up to the mountaintop. Nevertheless, neither the ark of the covenant of the Lord nor Moses departed from the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in that mountain came down and attacked them and drove them back as far as Hormah. Wow, talk about a tragedy. I mean, this really is tragic. But again, God was striving with the people. He took them out. He says, these 10 times they have not believed me. 10 times they've tested me. And, we see this in the book of Hebrews. I want to go there really quick because I think this is incredibly apropos. So Hebrews chapter 3, he says, beware lest any of you lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief by departing from the living God. But exhort one another daily while it's called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we have become partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast to the end. While it is said today, if you will hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion. For who having heard rebelled? Indeed, was it not all who came out of Egypt led by Moses? Now with whom was he angry 40 years? Was it not those who sinned, whose corpses fell in the wilderness? And to whom did he swear that they would not enter his rest, but to those who did not obey? So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. Therefore, since the promise remains of entering his rest, let us fear lest any of you seem to have come short of it. For indeed, the gospel, the good news, was preached to us as well as to them, but the word which they heard did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in those who heard it. Wow. I think that's pretty awesome. He talks about how unbelief or lack of faith is sin. That is sin, right? They were not believing. They would not believe God. And, sometimes we are sort of practical atheists, right? We proclaim the name of God. We sing about God. We carry our Bibles, and we quote a verse here and there, and we tell people that we know Jesus and all this. But when he asks us to do something, we're like, I'm not doing that. I don't believe you can really do that. I believe things about you. I like the fact that you provide things for me. But when you ask me to do something scary, no, I'm not doing that. But as we're kind of talking about in the military, if your commanding officer says, go take that hill, what do you do? Well, I don't know, commanding officer. I'm not really sure I want to do that. No, that's called a court-martial, right? You will be in serious trouble if you disobey a direct command. And yet here people have disobeyed direct commands from God 10 times. They did. They complained, oh, my commanding officer is no good. I don't like him. He's a bozo. That's what they were saying. That would never fly in the military. And yet God's like, okay, I'm going to work with you guys. I'm a little bit angry right now, but I'll work with you. So 10 times. Talk about a gracious and long-suffering God. Gracious and long-suffering is how God was with the children of Israel. And he is with us, of course. But we see that they had every benefit. They could see these miracles. They walked through on dry ground in the midst of the walls of water. And then the greatest army in the world came after them and perished. I mean, what more do you need? Water comes from a rock. When Moses hits the rock, water comes out, right? You've got manna coming down from heaven. You've got all this stuff that God is doing that doesn't happen on a regular day, right? These are miraculous events, and they're not impressed. And they're like, let's go back to Egypt. But this is what fear does, right? Fear gets into our hearts. And talk about people that brought a bad word. God says that there are 6 things, 7 that he hates, Ron, right? And one is, one who sows discord among the brethren. And boy, they were sowing some discord among the brethren big time. But, I think it's also very important that this is representative government, right? You had 12 people that went in. They were representing the people of Israel. And they came back and they gave their testimony. And the people believed their representatives, 10 out of 12. And so then they base that. And sometimes, I think we have to really be honest here. Sometimes we believe what we want to hear, right? This whole journey has been the children of Israel complaining. Like, I don't know if God's really going to do it. A few times they said, let's go back to Egypt and all that. And, and so now here, this report comes back and it's like, yep, I knew it. That confirms all my suspicions. God is really not for us. He's against us. He's going to kill us. He's going to send us off like sheep to be slaughtered. And I knew it. This confirms everything, instead of saying, wait a second, hasn't God been faithful? Right. Yes, he has. And I'll tell you, when I start finding myself kind of getting the jitters, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to be living under a bridge pretty soon if because God's going to abandon me. And then I have to say, wait, Doug, shut up, stop, just breathe for a second. Hasn't God always been faithful? Well, yeah. And remember back that time, 15 years ago? Yeah, he was faithful then. And that time 10 years ago? And, last year? Right? And I have to go through the list of things where I've seen God come through, and he hasn't let me live under a bridge or whatever. He's provided. And then I got to say, okay, he's been faithful. He's going to be faithful this time too. Right. It's not about giving God a pep talk. God's good. It's about reminding me of who he is. That's what I need. And that's what the children of Israel somehow forgot. But there had to be enormous amount of spiritual attack that was happening. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Satan is putting up a wall. He does not want the children of Israel to come into the land. Right. They're coming over to the land of Bashan, right? Where they're gonna take this is Satan's land, the land of Bashan, the land of the snake dragon. He doesn't want them to come in, just like when Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee and Satan was trying to keep him out then too.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's a tremendous amount of spiritual attack that's happening, and it's not really spoken, but we see the effects of it.
Right, and we see that happening today in the contemporary church. Just as you said, attack comes against you, something happens, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it stuns you, and it's like, oh, you kind of got to do a reflection and say, yep, God's been faithful. He's gotten me through that. He's going to get me through this as well. The thing that it scares me, and well, it doesn't scare me. I think about it as you read that passage in Hebrews. And it talks about, they had unbelief. I have belief. I believe in Jesus. But you're not doing anything for Jesus. It's like, I see so much of that today is like, okay, I believe, and therefore that's all I have to do, that I am set, I'm going to enter into the rest. I'm going to enter into the promised land, and everything's going to be hunky-dory and fine. And again, that's kind of finding space in that comfort zone that does not get us ready for the battle that does come and will come. And as you said earlier, it's like when hard times come, when that battle comes, when that enemy, the foe, comes against us, we crumble if we don't have this foundation, this training, this mindset that we are in the Lord's army, that we are part of a bigger thing than just us individuals, and we can take this on. But the thing that frightens me with the contemporary church is that they rest in their faith, and they rest, and they just sit there.
They rest in their dogma, not their faith.
Well,
they rest in a creed, in a doctrine. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, they do. They have a faith, but they don't have anything they don't take it anywhere. It goes home. It goes home with them every week.
Right.
Yeah. A creed. It's like, I believe this. Yeah.
It's not an active faith. It's not a doing kind of faith, but it's I have this set of beliefs about God that I've written down and called my creed or my doctrine, and I believe that to be true.
And I've said my prayer, and that is the extent of my walk with Christ. And now I'm just waiting for the trumpet to sound. It's like, okay, I hope I get a nice horse.
Yeah, and that's kind of the church at large. Let's kind of pick on our own group, right? And I think sometimes, I've seen people come through the way, and it's kind of like, well, now I know I'm supposed to worship on Sabbath, and I know I'm supposed to eat clean and celebrate the feast. I've arrived. I'm good. And there seems to be this sense of, I don't need to do any more. I've made it this far. I've learned. I've overcome, the Sunday church or something like that. And now I'm just going to chill out. And It's like, okay, congratulations, you're on Shabbat. That's wonderful. I love Shabbat, and I'm all for it. But we have the same calling. The calling has not changed. To be a disciple and to make disciples. That has not changed. The same challenges are going to be set before us. If we're really serious about our walk with the Lord, then we should be expecting some challenges. Hopefully they're not every day, but you will have challenges in your life, and I tell you, when I start kind of getting into that season of challenges and trials, what I really try to do, it's not always the first word out of my mouth, but I try to do it quickly, is to thank the Lord. Because I say, Lord, this kind of hurts right now, if I'm honest, right? But I know that you're working something good through this. You're working it in my life and other people's lives. Nothing is wasted through these trials. You're using these for your glory and for my benefit. So I want to thank you for those.
Right. And I think that's something that we need to challenge one another with, that we need to challenge the people in the seats with. As to, what are you doing today for the kingdom? and how is your life being lived out for the kingdom? What are you doing in your family for the kingdom? What are you doing in the fellowship, in the community for the kingdom? And get this kingdom mindset that we have an active role, that we're not just passive participants in an easy chair. There are no
armchair quarterbacks.
Armchair quarterbacks, right?
That's
right. A lot of people that like to call the shots.
Yes, they do.
But very few that are actually willing to get out of the seat and do something about it. And I think that's something we need to step up to, that we need to challenge one another to do. And again, it's part of that. It's part of that training, and it's something we definitely need to get better at. But I think it starts with each individual. It can't be just you and I sitting here talking to people. It really needs to be seated in each person's heart that you need to take the responsibility as a believer, to take the responsibility as a member of the body of Messiah, to live out your faith in a very active, tangible way. And sometimes that's scary.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Well, chapter 15. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you have come into the land you are to inhabit, which I am giving to you, and you make an offering by fire to the Lord, a burnt offering or a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a freewill offering, or in your appointed feast to make a sweet aroma to the Lord, from the herd or from the flock. Then he who presents his offering to the Lord shall bring a grain offering of 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering you shall prepare with the burnt offering or the sacrifice for each lamb. Or for a ram you shall prepare as a grain offering 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/3 of a hin of oil. And as a drink offering you shall offer 1/3 of a hin of wine as a sweet aroma to the Lord. And when you prepare a young bull as a burnt offering, or as a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a peace offering to the Lord, then shall be offered with the young bull a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with half a hin of oil. And you shall bring as the drink offering half a hin of wine as an offering made by fire, sweet aroma to the Lord. Thus it shall be done for each young bull, for each ram, or for each lamb or young goat. According to the number that you prepare, so you shall do with every one according to their number. All who are native born shall do these things in this manner, in presenting an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. And if a stranger dwells with you, or whoever is among you throughout your generations, and would present an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord, just as you do, so he shall do. One ordinance shall be for you of the assembly, and for the stranger who dwells with you, an ordinance forever throughout your generations. As you are, so shall the stranger be before the Lord. One law and one custom shall be for you, and for the stranger who dwells with you." Again, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I bring you, then it will be when you eat of the bread of the land that you shall offer up a heave offering to the Lord. You shall offer up a cake of the first of your ground meal as a heave offering of the threshing floor, so shall you offer it up. Of the first of your ground meal you shall give to the Lord a heave offering throughout your generations. If you sin unintentionally and do not observe all these commandments which the Lord has spoken to Moses, and all that the Lord has commanded you by the hand of Moses from the day the Lord gave commandment and onward throughout your generations, then it will be, if it is unintentionally committed without the knowledge of the congregation, that the whole congregation shall offer one young bull as a burnt offering, as a sweet aroma to the Lord, with its grain offering and its drink offering, according to the ordinance, and one kid of the goats as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for the whole congregation of the children of Israel, and it shall be forgiven them, for it was unintentional. They shall bring their offering, an offering made by fire to the Lord, and their sin offering before the Lord for the unintended sin. It shall be forgiven the whole congregation of the children of Israel, and the stranger who dwells among them, because all the people did it unintentionally. And if a person sins unintentionally, then he shall bring a female goat in its first year as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for the person who sins unintentionally when he sins unintentionally before the Lord, to make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. You shall have one law for him who sins unintentionally, for him who is native born among the children of Israel, and for the stranger who dwells among them. But the person who does anything presumptuously, whether he is native born or stranger, that one brings reproach on the Lord, and he shall be cut off from among his people, because he has despised the word of the Lord and has broken commandment. That person shall be completely cut off. His guilt shall be upon him. All right. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's where it ends, right? Okay, good. I was like, I think that's where it ends. Anyway, he keeps driving home that there's going to be one law for the native and for the ger, for the stranger, the foreigner who dwells among them. I think that's such an important point. And one of the distinctives of Commonwealth theology is that we see that, we're grafted in, right? So here you have a guy who's not native born, but he's now living among the children of Israel. I'm almost certain God has the mixed multitude in mind when he's talking about that, right? Because this is still fresh. They didn't come out of Egypt that long ago, right? This is within roughly a year, right? So
right.
So people are still having their basic ethnic identities as they came out of Egypt. They still have those. And so he's saying, look, if you're not native born, that's fine. You're now living with the children of Israel. You're now one of the children of Israel. There's not going to be a separate law for the mixed multitude Egyptians, and there's another law for the Israelites. No, you're grafted into the Commonwealth.
Grafted in, yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, you're one of us.
Exactly. And so, there's no favoritism on anybody's part. And that really is the beauty of it. Everyone gets to enjoy all the benefits, but you also have the obligations as well. Yep. And, so this is really important. I also think there's something kind of comforting in all this, right? God has just pronounced, you guys aren't going anywhere for 40 years. All right. So just sit down. But when I do take you in, here's what's going to happen, right? Yeah. And it's going to be one law, and here's what's going to happen. So God's like, you know what? All right, I had to discipline you, but good times are still coming, okay? Yep. It's delayed because that's what you chose, but it's still coming. I still love you, even though we had to do this, And that's the amazing thing about God, is that he does not stay angry very long. His anger is but for a moment. But his mercy is forever. Yeah. It's so beautiful.
Yep. Hodu l'Adonai kitov, right?
Ki leolam chasto.
Amen,
exactly.
Brother.
Right, because his mercy is forever. Right. So yeah, he does get angry. He has emotions. He doesn't like it when people continue to sin and to poke him in the eye. He's not happy about that. And he'll deal with it. But he is still a loving, gracious, merciful God. And the God of the Old Testament is the same God as the New Testament, right? The God that the Jews were worshiping is the same God that we're worshiping today, right? The God that gave his commandments is the same God who sent Jesus to show us how to live out those commandments. This idea that there's a big wall between, the books of the Old Testament and the New Testament, the God of the Old Testament, God of the New Testament, that is straight up Marcionism. It's bad. Reject it. Repent of it if you're somebody who thinks that way. It's the same good, loving God. Yeah. And in the New Testament, that same God, loving God, also still has standards, and he's going to judge the world. So it's an unfortunate dichotomy that has gotten into the psyche of the church. And, they think that that was God back then, but now he's turned over a leaf and now he's into being nice and all this stuff. It's like, no.
And to hear more about this, Doug, you may want to do a plug for what's coming up Sunday. Wow, look at you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, everybody, I hope you can join us this coming Sunday. We're having a webinar starting at 10 Pacific, 11 o'clock Mountain, 12 o'clock Central, and 1 o'clock Eastern. So it'll be right here on my channel. If you forget that, you can go to commonwealthofisrael.com or just show up here on my channel, Doug Hamp, youtube.com/Doug Hamp. And 6 speakers, we're going to be talking about discovering your true identity in the Commonwealth of Israel. So a lot of these questions that we have, some of these thoughts and Bible difficulties, etc., this is intended for the newbie. This is a 101 kind of class, okay? And we really want to take people through and give them the basics. So I hope you will join us. We are giving away a number of ebooks. So, please join us, and we'll be giving out those ebooks as well, just as a bonus, saying thank you for coming. But it's going to be a wonderful time of learning, and so it'll be really really interesting, and we want to encourage people to come.
And in understanding what it means to be part of the Commonwealth of Israel is one of the things that will help you kind of move into a faith-based active life that will take you into realms that God has prepared for you and will go before you, and you will see the Anakim and the Nephilim be conquered in your midst. I tell you, just strengthen, train, be ready, go to battle, and the Lord has your back all the time. He's got your front, he's got your side, he's got your up, he got your down, he's all around you. He has got you covered.
Amen. Well, with that, been another wonderful Midrash. Thank you, Brother Gary. And thank you, everyone out there, for joining us. We're just delighted to see you. And just a little quick tease, we're coming up with a new website, and we're going to have a church app. So I'm really excited about this. So just keep thinking about that. We'll bring that out in a few weeks just to show you, but a little tease. So many blessings. Hope to see you guys on